Station was the largest trading hub in the outer rim of the galaxy. Thousands of aliens from hundreds of different worlds came here every day to buy, sell, and trade. The station was always busy. The corridors were always crowded. The noise never stopped. But when Eth walked through the main corridor, everything changed. The crowd split apart like water around a rock. Aliens pressed themselves against the walls. Some ran into shops and closed the doors. Others stood frozen in fear, too scared to move. A small creature with 6 legs fainted and had to be carried away by its friends. He stood 12 feet tall. His body was covered in scales that were black as the space between stars. He had 4 arms, each one ending in claws that could cut through metal like paper. His eyes glowed like melted copper, and when he breathed, small clouds of hot air came from his nose. They were the most feared species in the galaxy. For thousands of years they had been warriors. They conquered planets. They destroyed fleets. They were so dangerous that 17 star systems had signed treaties just to keep them away. When other species talked about them, they whispered. When they saw one, they ran. But Eth was not like other, at least not anymore. He walked slowly through the station, his heavy feet making the floor shake with each step. He carried a bag over one of his shoulders. He was here to buy supplies, food, water, some parts for a machine he was trying to fix. Simple things, normal things. But nothing was normal when you were a monster. He stopped at a small shop that sold food from different worlds. The shopkeeper was a round alien with blue skin and 3 eyes. When he saw Eth standing in his doorway, he screamed and fell backward off his chair. Eth waited. He was used to this. The shopkeeper crawled back up, shaking so hard that his whole body wobbled. What do you want?" he asked. His voice was barely a whisper. "Dried meat," Eth said. His voice was deep and rough like stones grinding together. 2 kilos and water tablets. The shopkeeper grabbed the items with trembling hands. He put them on the counter but stood as far away as possible, stretching his arms out so he would not have to get close. Eth placed the credits on the counter and took his items. He did not thank the shopkeeper. There was no point. The alien would not remember anything except his fear. Eth continued through the station. He needed to find a place to eat. His body required fuel, just like any other living thing, but finding a place where he could sit and eat was never easy. The cantina was the largest eating area on station. It had hundreds of tables and served food from dozens of worlds. When Eth entered, the room fell silent. Every conversation stopped. Every fork and spoon froze in midair. Hundreds of alien eyes turned to look at him. Then the movement started. Aliens grabbed their plates and moved away from the tables near the door. Some left their food behind entirely and walked quickly toward the exits. Within a minute, a large circle of empty tables surrounded the entrance where Eth stood. He chose a table in the corner. It was the most isolated spot in the room. He sat down on a bench that groaned under his weight. He put his bag on the table and began to eat his dried meat in silence. Around him, the cantina slowly came back to life. Aliens started talking again, but in whispers. They kept looking at him from the corners of their eyes. Parents pulled their children closer. Security guards watched him from the walls, their hands near their weapons. Eth ate and tried to ignore it all. This was his life now. This was what he had become. An exile, a pariah, a creature that made the entire galaxy afraid. It had not always been this way. Once he had been a war singer of the hegemony. He had commanded ships. He had led armies. He had been respected and honored among his people. But that was before the border purges. The border purges were a dark time. The High Command had ordered the destruction of 3 colony worlds that had resisted rule. The order was clear. Kill everyone. Leave no survivors. Make an example that the galaxy would never forget. Eth had refused. He remembered standing on the bridge of his warship, looking down at the planet below. He remembered the faces of the prisoners on his view screen. Families, children, innocent beings who had done nothing wrong except live on the wrong world at the wrong time. He could not do it. He would not do it. So he had let them go. He had opened the prison doors and told them to run. He had bought them time to escape to another system. And when the High Command found out, they had not killed him. No, death would have been too easy. Instead, they had taken everything from him. His rank, his honor, his name among his people. They had marked him as a traitor and cast him out into the galaxy to wander alone forever. That was 3 years ago. Since then, Eth had traveled from station to station, planet to planet, never staying anywhere for long. He had no friends. He had no home. He had nothing but his shame and his memories. The cantina was crowded now, but the tables around him remained empty. He was surrounded by noise and life, but he was completely alone. This was the truth of his existence. He was too frightening to approach, too dangerous to trust, too alien to understand. He finished his meat and drank some water. He was about to leave when he noticed something strange. A human was looking at him. Humans were new to the galaxy. They had only joined the galactic community about 30 years ago when their first ships had traveled beyond their home system. They were small creatures, weak, soft. They had no claws, no scales, no natural weapons of any kind. Most aliens thought they were primitive and unimportant. This human was a female. She had dark hair pulled back from her face and brown skin that showed the marks of hard work and hard living. She wore the rough clothes of a cargo hauler. Her hands were wrapped around a glass of some amber liquid. And she was staring right at Eth. Not with fear, not with disgust, just with a kind of calm curiosity, like she was looking at an interesting rock formation or an unusual piece of machinery. A diplomat at the bar leaned over to her. Eth could hear his words with his sharp ears. That creature could kill everyone in this room in under a minute. Humans are new to the galaxy. You do not understand what they are. Stay away from him. The human nodded slowly. Then she did something that no one in the room expected. She ordered 2 drinks. She picked them up, one in each hand. She walked away from the bar, and she started walking toward Eth's table. The cantina fell silent again. A merchant at a nearby table fainted and fell out of his chair. 2 security guards started forward, then stopped, not sure what to do. Every eye in the room watched the small human female as she walked across the empty space toward the giant alien warrior. Eth watched her come. His copper eyes tracked her every step. His claws rested on the table perfectly still. He did not move. He did not speak. He simply waited to see what this strange, foolish, impossible creature would do. She stopped at his table. She looked up at him. He was so tall that even sitting down, he towered over her. She smiled. "Those seats taken?" she asked. And in that moment, everything began to change. Eth stared at the human female for a long moment. She stood there with 2 glasses in her hands, looking up at him like it was the most normal thing in the world. Behind her, the entire cantina had gone completely silent. Not a single fork moved. Not a single voice spoke. Everyone was watching. "You are either ignorant or suicidal, human," Eth said. His voice was deep and rough, and it made the glasses on nearby tables vibrate. The human shrugged. "Neither. Just figured anyone who sits alone that long could use a drink." She pulled out a chair and sat down across from him. The metal legs scraped against the floor, and the sound seemed impossibly loud in the silent room. She put one of the glasses in front of Eth and kept the other for herself. "I am," she said. "I haul cargo. What do you do?" Eth did not answer. He was too surprised. In 3 years of wandering the galaxy, no one had ever sat down with him. No one had ever offered him a drink. No one had ever asked him what he did. They were all too afraid. Behind, the cantina began to empty. Aliens were leaving their tables and walking quickly toward the exits. Some were running. Within 2 minutes, the station's security feeds would later show 14 different species had evacuated the area, but did not seem to notice. She just sat there, sipping her drink, waiting for him to speak. "Why are you here?" Ed finally asked. "I told you to have a drink." "No, I mean why are you here at this table with me? You must know what I am." Looked at him carefully. Her brown eyes moved over his scales, his claws, his massive body. She did not seem afraid. She seemed like she was thinking. "I know you are," she said. "I know everyone is scared of you, but I have been watching you for the last hour. You came in, you bought food, you sat down, you ate. You did not hurt anyone. You did not threaten anyone. You just sat here alone while everyone ran away from you." She took another sip of her drink. "That does not sound like a monster to me. That sounds like someone having a really bad day." Ed did not know what to say. He picked up the glass she had given him. It was very small in his massive hand. He smelled it. Terran whiskey, strong and sharp. He had never tried human drinks before. He drank it in one swallow. "It is not bad," he said. Smiled. "It is cheap and terrible, but it gets the job done." She leaned back in her chair. She seemed completely relaxed, like she was sitting in her own home instead of across from one of the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. "So," she said, "I'm a cargo hauler. I have a small ship, nothing fancy. I move things from one place to another. It is not exciting, but it pays the bills, most of the time." She paused. "What about you? What is your story?" Eth was silent for a long moment. He did not talk about his past. He did not talk about anything. Talking required trust, and he had learned that trust was a weakness. But there was something about this human, something different. She was not afraid of him. She was not pretending to be brave. She simply was not scared. "I was a soldier," he said finally, "a war singer of the hegemony. I commanded ships and led warriors into battle, but that was a long time ago." "What happened?" "I made a choice. I refused an order, and now I am here." Nodded slowly. She did not ask what order he had refused. She did not push for details. She just accepted his answer and moved on. "I understand that," she said. "Making choices that cost you everything. I have been there." Before Eth could respond, a shadow fell over the table. He looked up to see a mercenary standing nearby. There was drunk. His scales were flushed with the color that showed alcohol in his blood, and he was swaying slightly on his feet. "Look at this," the mercenary said loudly. His words were slurred. "The monster has a pet, a little human pet. How cute." The cantina had almost emptied, but the few aliens who remained turned to watch. The security guards at the walls tensed, their hands moving toward their weapons. Eth felt his claws twitch. The old instincts were still there, buried deep inside him. The warrior's response to insult, the desire to show this fool what it could do. But before he could move, stood up. She was tiny compared to the... He was almost twice her height and 3 times her weight, but she walked right up to him and looked him in the eyes. "Find somewhere else to be pathetic," she said. Her voice was calm and cold. The mercenary laughed. "What are you going to do, little human? Hide behind your monster?" Did not answer. Instead, she threw her drink in his face. The whiskey splashed into his eyes, and he stumbled backward with a cry of surprise and pain. While he was still rubbing his eyes, stepped close and kicked him hard in the place where we're most sensitive. The mercenary made a sound like air escaping from a broken machine and collapsed to the floor. I said, "Find somewhere else to be pathetic." The mercenary crawled away, still making that broken sound. He did not look back. When he was gone, returned to her seat like nothing had happened. "Sorry about that," she said. "People can be so rude." Eth stared at her. He had seen many things in his life. He had fought in battles that would give most beings nightmares, but he had never seen anything quite like this human. "You are unusual," he said. "I have been called worse. Why are you not afraid?" Was quiet for a moment. She looked at her empty glass, then looked at him. "I have seen a lot of bad things in my life," she said. I grew up on Earth in a place that was not kind. I have seen what people can do to each other, the cruelty, the hate. I have seen monsters, real monsters, who look just like everyone else. She paused. You are big. You have claws. Everyone tells me you are dangerous. But you know what I see when I look at you? Eth waited. I see tired, said. I see alone. I see someone who has been running from something for a long time, and I see someone who just wants to eat his dinner in peace. She smiled a little. That is not scary. That is sad, and sad I can deal with. Eth did not speak. He could not. For the first time in 3 years, something had broken through the wall he had built around himself. This tiny, fragile human had walked right through his defenses without even trying. You are wrong about me, he said finally. I am dangerous. I have done things you cannot imagine. I have killed more beings than you have ever met. The galaxy is right to fear me. Maybe, said, but right now you are just a guy sitting alone in a bar, and I am just a woman who needs another drink. She stood up and headed toward the bar. Same again. Eth watched her go. He should leave. He should walk away and never see this human again. She did not know what she was doing. She did not understand the danger she was putting herself in. But instead he said, yes, the same again. Returned with 2 more drinks, she sat down and they talked. They talked for hours, told him about Earth, about the blue oceans and green forests of her home world. She told him about her ship, a battered old freighter called the Honest Mistake. She told him about the time she outran pirates in an asteroid field and the time she accidentally delivered a cargo of live animals to the wrong planet. And slowly, carefully, Eth began to talk too. He told her about the home world of his people. He told her about the Red Mountains and the Black Seas. He told her about the warrior traditions and the songs they sang before battle. He did not tell her about the border purges. That wound was still too fresh. But he told her other things, things he had not told anyone in years. When the cantina finally closed for the night cycle, stood up and stretched. Same time tomorrow, she asked. Eth looked at her, this strange, fearless human who had walked into his isolation and refused to leave. Same time tomorrow, he agreed. And for the first time in 3 years, he felt something he had almost forgotten. Weeks passed. The days turned into a routine that Eth had never expected to have. Every morning, he would wake up in the small room he rented on the lower levels of station. He would eat breakfast alone. Then he would walk to Docking Bay 47, where ship was parked. The Honest Mistake was not a beautiful ship. It was old and scratched and held together in places with patches and prayers. The paint was faded. The engines made strange noises. One of the cargo doors did not close all the way unless you kicked it in exactly the right spot. But it was ship, and that made it special. Eth had started helping her with cargo runs. Could not pay him much, but she paid him something, and more importantly, she gave him something to do, something that mattered. The work was simple. Load cargo, fly to a planet or station. Unload cargo, collect payment, fly back. Most of the cargo was boring, machine parts, food supplies, medical equipment, nothing exciting. But Eth did not need excitement. He needed purpose, and for the first time in 3 years he had one. Other pilots on the station thought was crazy. They watched her walk through the corridors with a 12-foot warrior behind her, and they shook their heads. Some of them laughed. Some of them made jokes. But the jokes stopped when they saw Eth loading cargo. He could lift containers that would take machines to move. He could work for hours without rest. And anyone who thought about causing trouble for ship quickly changed their mind when they saw the giant alien standing guard at the cargo bay. Never treated him like a monster. She never treated him like a weapon either. She treated him like a friend, a partner, an equal. It was strange. It was wonderful. It was the best time of Eth's life since before the border purges. But good things do not last forever. It started with a message. Was in the cockpit, going over their next delivery route, when her communication system beeped. She pressed the button to accept the call, and a face appeared on the screen. They were known across the galaxy as criminals and thieves. This one had the look of someone important, someone dangerous. His scales were decorated with gold, and his eyes were cold and calculating. The said, "I am director of the syndicate of, I believe we have business to discuss." His face went pale. Eth had never seen her look scared before, but now, for just a moment, he saw fear in her eyes. "I do not know what you're talking about," said. "I do not do business with the syndicate." "Oh, but you do," Director smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "You borrowed credits from a bank on Station Meridian 3 years ago. That bank was recently purchased by the syndicate, which means your debt now belongs to us." Was quiet for a moment. "I have been making payments. I am not behind." "That is true, but we have decided to call in the full amount, all of it, immediately." Director leaned forward. "Unless, of course, you would like to work off the debt in another way." "What do you want?" "A simple delivery. We have a cargo of weapons that needs to be transported through the contested zone near the border. It is a dangerous route, but you have a reputation for being good at dangerous routes. Complete the delivery and your debt is paid. Refuse, and we will take your ship, your cargo, and anything else of value, including your life." The screen went dark. Director was gone. Sat in her chair without moving. Her hands were shaking. Eth stood in the doorway of the cockpit watching her. He said, "What will you do?" She did not answer right away. She stared at the blank screen like she was waiting for something else to happen. Then slowly she shook her head. "I will not do it," she said. "I will not smuggle weapons. Those weapons will be used to kill people, innocent people. I will not have that on my hands. But if you refuse, they will take everything from you." "I know," stood up and began to pace. It was a small cockpit, so she could only take a few steps in each direction. "I know, but some things are more important than money. Some things are more important than this ship. I have to be able to live with myself. I have to be able to look in the mirror and know that I did not help anyone get killed." She stopped packing and looked at Ev. Her eyes were wet, but she was not crying. She was too strong to cry. "You could run," Ev said. "You could disappear into human space. The syndicate does not have much power there. You would be safe. And leave everything behind. My ship, my life here," shook her head. "No, I will not run. I have been running from things my whole life. Poverty, debt, bad luck. I am tired of running." "Then what will you do?" "I will fight. I do not know how, but I will find a way." Eth was quiet for a long moment. He thought about everything had done for him. She had sat down at his table when everyone else ran away. She had given him a job when no one else would hire him. She had treated him like a person when the whole galaxy saw him as a monster. She had given him hope. And now she was facing a battle she could not win. The syndicate of was powerful. They had ships, soldiers, and connections everywhere. One human woman with a broken-down freighter had no chance against them. But she was not alone. Eth said. His voice was quiet, but it filled the small cockpit. There is a bond called oral. It is a debt of honor that can never be broken. When one warrior saves the life of another, the saved warrior owes a debt that lasts until death, until the stars burn out." Looked at him confused. "I did not save your life." "Yes, you did." Eth stepped into the cockpit. He had to bend down to fit through the door. "You saved me from something worse than death. You saved me from being alone. You gave me a purpose, a reason to exist beyond shame." He knelt down so that his copper eyes were level with hers. "I owe you a debt I can never repay, and I will stand with you against the syndicate, against anyone, until the stars burn out." Stared at him. For a moment she did not speak. Then slowly she smiled. "You know," she said, "when I sat down at your table that first night, I just wanted to have a drink with someone interesting. I did not expect to make a friend." "Neither did I." She reached out and put her hand on his massive arm. Her hand was so small compared to him, so fragile, but there was strength in her touch. "All right," she said. "If we are going to fight, we need a plan. The Syndicate gave me 1 week to respond. That gives us 7 days to figure out how to survive this. Then we should start now." "Yes," nodded. Her eyes were bright again. The fear was gone, replaced by determination. "Yes, we should, but first I need another drink. Planning always goes better with whiskey." Despite everything, Eth laughed. It was a deep, rumbling sound that shook the walls of the cockpit. He had not laughed in years. "I will get the glasses," he said. And together they began to plan. The week passed too quickly. And Eth spent every day preparing. They fixed what they could on the honest mistake. They bought extra fuel and supplies. They mapped escape routes through nearby systems. They did everything possible to get ready for what was coming. But they both knew it would not be enough. On the 7th day, sent her response to Director. It was short and clear. She would not smuggle weapons for the Syndicate. She would not help them hurt innocent people. And if they wanted to take her ship, they would have to come and get it. The Syndicate came. Was flying through open space between station and the human colonies when her sensors started screaming. 12 ships dropped out of hyperspace around her. They were Syndicate attack vessels, small and fast and armed with enough weapons to turn the honest mistake into dust. "Attention, cargo vessel," a voice crackled over the communication system. "This is Syndicate enforcement. You are ordered to surrender your ship immediately. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Resistance is pointless." Looked at the tactical display, 12 ships against 1. The math was simple. The math was impossible. She activated the station's emergency broadcast channel. Every ship within range would receive this signal. Every station would record it. The whole galaxy would be able to see what was about to happen. Then she turned on her ship's external cameras and started broadcasting live. "This is of the cargo vessel honest mistake," she said into the communication system. Her voice was calm and steady. "I am being attacked by the Syndicate because I refuse to smuggle weapons for them. If anyone can hear this, I am asking for help. But even if no one comes, I want the galaxy to see what happens to people who say no to criminals." The Syndicate ships did not respond. They just moved closer, forming a tight circle around her little freighter. Sent out a distress call to Galactic Patrol, then another, then another. No one answered. No one wanted to get involved with the Syndicate. They were alone. Eth's voice came from behind her. She turned and saw him standing in the doorway of the cockpit, but he looked different. He was wearing armor. It was old armor, ancient armor. Black and silver plates covered his body from neck to feet. Strange symbols were carved into the metal. The armor looked like it had been made for war, real war, the kind that decided the fate of worlds. "What is that?" asked. "The armor of a war singer," Eth said. "I kept it hidden. I thought I would never wear it again, but today I think I need it." In his 4 hands he held weapons. 2 plasma blades that hummed with deadly energy. 2 shield generators that glowed with protective force. He looked like something out of a nightmare. He looked like death itself. "They will board us," Eth said. "The Syndicate wants your ship intact. They will send soldiers through the airlock. When they do, I will be waiting." "Eth, there could be dozens of them, maybe 100. Even you cannot fight that many." "I was a war singer of the hegemony. I once held a bridge against 200 enemies for 6 hours. I killed them all." His copper eyes glowed in the dim light. "These criminals are nothing compared to that. And today, I fight for something worth dying for." Wanted to argue. She wanted to tell him it was too dangerous, that they should find another way. But she saw the look in his eyes and she understood. This was who he was. This was what he needed to do. "All right," she said. "You handle the boarding parties. I will try to keep us alive up here." Eth nodded. He turned and walked toward the cargo bay, where the main airlock was located. His heavy footsteps echoed through the ship like drums of war. Faced her controls. The Syndicate ships were moving into attack position. In a few minutes, they would start their assault. She took a deep breath, then she started flying. The honest mistake was not a warship. It had no weapons except for a small laser that was meant for shooting asteroids, but knew her ship better than anyone. She knew every trick it could do, every limit it could push. The Syndicate fired first. Plasma bolts streaked through space toward her, threw her ship into a spinning dive, and the shots passed harmlessly above her. She flew straight toward the nearest enemy vessel, getting so close that their weapons could not track her properly. Then she pulled up at the last second and flew between two ships, making them hit each other when they tried to shoot her. Behind her, she heard the airlock alarm. The first boarding party had arrived. Then she heard the screams. The Syndicate soldiers came through the airlock expecting a frightened human woman and maybe some hired crew. They found a war singer of the instead. Eth moved through them like a storm through paper. His plasma blades cut through armor like it was not there. His shields blocked every shot they fired at him. He fought with a precision and power that most beings could not imagine. But he did not kill everyone, had asked him not to, so he broke weapons instead of necks. He knocked soldiers unconscious instead of cutting them down. He disabled instead of destroyed. It was harder that way, it took longer, but he did it because had asked. More soldiers came, then more. The Syndicate sent wave after wave through the airlock, and Eth met them all. The cargo bay floor became slippery with blood, though most of it was not his. In the cockpit, fought her own battle. She flew the honest mistake through impossible spaces between enemy ships, through their formation, using their own weapons against them. When one ship tried to ram her, she dove underneath it and came up behind it, watching as it crashed into another vessel. The battle lasted for over an hour. It felt like forever. Finally, when the honest mistake's engines were smoking and the hull was full of holes, when Eth had defeated so many soldiers that he had lost count, when it seemed like they could not last another minute, something changed. New signals appeared on sensors. Ships were dropping out of hyperspace. A lot of ships. Galactic Patrol had finally arrived. They came with 30 vessels, weapons hot and shields raised. The Syndicate ships scattered like insects before a fire. Within minutes, most of them had fled into hyperspace. The ones that remained were surrounded and captured. Slumped in her chair, her hands were shaking so badly that she could barely hold the controls. Around her, the cockpit was full of smoke and warning lights, but she was alive. They had survived. Heavy footsteps approached from behind. Eth appeared in the doorway. His armor was covered in burns and scratches. Black blood, his own, dripped from several wounds, but he was standing. He was alive. "It is over," he said. "It is over," agreed. They looked at each other for a long moment. Then, despite everything, started to laugh. "We did it," she said. "We actually did it. A broken-down freighter and one very angry against the entire Syndicate, and we won." Eth's mouth moved in what might have been a smile. It was hard to tell with faces. "We had an advantage they did not expect." "What was that?" "We had each other." A transmission came through from the Galactic Patrol flagship. They wanted to know what had happened. They wanted to know who had fought off an entire Syndicate assault fleet with a single cargo ship. Took a deep breath and activated the communication system. The whole galaxy was still watching. The broadcast had gone out to every corner of known space. Everyone had seen what happened. "This is," she said, "I am a human cargo hauler, and I think I have a story to tell." The footage spread across the galaxy like fire. Within hours, every major news network was showing clips from broadcast. A small human cargo ship, surrounded by 12 Syndicate vessels. A giant warrior in ancient armor, fighting off wave after wave of attackers. Two beings from completely different worlds, standing together against impossible odds. The commentators could not stop talking about it. They analyzed every second of the battle. They brought in military experts to explain how unlikely their survival had been. They debated what it meant for human-alien relations, for the syndicate's reputation, for the nature of courage itself. Everyone had an opinion. Everyone wanted to know more. The hegemony issued a formal statement. They said Eth was a traitor and an exile, and that his actions did not represent their people. They demanded that he be returned to space to face judgment for his crimes. The human diplomatic corps responded politely that they had no intention of handing over anyone to anyone. They also quietly gave a commendation for bravery, though they did not announce it publicly. But beyond the politics and the arguments, something else was happening, something more important. People were changing their minds. On station where the story had begun, things were different now. Eth walked through the corridors just as he had before, but now not everyone ran away. Some aliens still avoided him. Some still pressed themselves against the walls, but others just nodded and moved on. A few even said hello. One day, Eth was standing in the marketplace, buying supplies for the honest mistake. The ship was being repaired after the battle, and they needed parts. He was examining a fuel converter when he felt something touch his leg. He looked down. A young child was standing beside him. She was very small, with purple fur and big round eyes. Her parents were a few feet away, looking terrified but not moving to stop her. "Excuse me," the child said. Her voice was high and soft. "Are you the one from the video, the one who fought the bad guys?" Eth looked at her. He could have killed her with one claw. He could have destroyed her family without effort. Every instinct from his training told him that he was a weapon, a monster, something to be feared. But then he thought of that first night in the cantina when she had sat down at his table and treated him like a person instead of a threat. He knelt down slowly, bringing his massive body closer to the child's level. His copper eyes met her purple ones. "Yes," he said, "I am." The child's face lit up with wonder. "Can I touch your scales? They look really cool." Eth glanced at her parents. The mother looked like she was about to faint. The father was frozen in place, unable to move or speak. Eth extended one of his arms toward the child. She reached out with her small, furry hand and touched his scales. Her fingers traced the pattern on his arm, feeling the texture of the black surface. "Wow," she said, "they are warm. I thought they would be cold." "Are warm-blooded," Eth said, "like many species. My mom says you are very brave. She says you saved that human lady from the bad guys." "We saved each other." The child smiled. It was a simple, innocent smile, the kind of smile that had never learned to be afraid. "Thank you for being brave," she said. Then she turned and ran back to her parents, who grabbed her and hurried away, still looking nervous but no longer looking terrified. Eth stood there for a moment, watching them go. Then he turned back to the fuel converters and continued his shopping. But something inside him had shifted. Something had changed. He was not just a monster anymore. He was something more. Across the station was sitting in a repair bay, watching technicians work on her ship. The honest mistake had taken a lot of damage in the battle, but it could be fixed. Better than fixed, actually. Anonymous donors had sent credits to pay for the repairs. A lot of credits, enough to fix everything and upgrade several systems. Did not know who the donors were. She suspected some of them were humans who had seen the broadcast. Maybe some were aliens who had been impressed by what she did. Maybe some were just people who wanted to say thank you for standing up to the syndicate. It did not matter. What mattered was that her ship would fly again. Her debts were paid. Her future was open. A journalist found her while she was waiting. He was a small creature with multiple eyes and a recorder floating beside his head. He introduced himself as a reporter for the Galactic News Network. "Ms.," he said, "I would like to ask you some questions for our viewers. The footage of your battle has been seen by trillions of beings across the galaxy. Everyone wants to know more about you. Shrugged, I am not that interesting. I am just a cargo hauler. You befriended a warrior. You refused to work for the Syndicate. You broadcast your battle live to the entire galaxy. That seems very interesting to me. Thought about it for a moment, then she nodded. All right, what do you want to know? The question everyone is asking is why. Why did you do it? Why did you approach Ed that first night when everyone else was running away? Why did you risk your life to stand up to the Syndicate? What made you different from everyone else? Was quiet for a long moment. She looked at her ship, at the workers fixing the hull, at the stars visible through the repair bay's windows. I have been thinking about that question a lot, she said finally, and I think I have an answer, but I am not sure you will like it. Please tell us. Fear is easy, said. Her voice was soft but clear. Everyone is afraid of something. That is normal. That is natural. When you see something big and dangerous, your body tells you to run. When you face a fight you cannot win, your brain tells you to give up. Fear is the easy choice. Fear is what most people do. She paused, gathering her thoughts. But humans have learned something. We have learned that the scariest things in the universe are not monsters. They are not aliens with claws or criminals with weapons. The scariest things are loneliness, cruelty, giving up on people before you even know them. She looked directly at the recorder. I sat down at that table because I saw someone alone. I saw someone that everyone had given up on without even trying to know him. And I thought, that is wrong. That is not fair. Everyone deserves a chance. Everyone deserves someone who will at least try to understand them. And you were not afraid. Of course I was afraid, but I was more afraid of what I would become if I let fear control me. I was more afraid of becoming the kind of person who runs away from things just because they are different. The journalist nodded slowly, and the Syndicate, why refuse them? Because some things matter more than money. Some things matter more than survival. I have to live with myself. I have to look in the mirror every day and know who I am. And I could not be someone who helped get innocent people killed, no matter what the cost. Heavy footsteps approached from behind. Eth appeared, carrying a bag of supplies. He stopped when he saw the journalist and the floating recorder. Am I interrupting? He asked. No, said, I was just finishing. The journalist turned to Eth. Sir, do you have anything to add? Any final thoughts for our viewers? Eth looked at the recorder for a long moment. Then he looked back at the recorder. My people have a saying, he said. His deep voice carried across the repair bay. Fear the human who offers you kindness, because they have seen something in you worth saving, and they will burn worlds to protect it. He put one massive claw gently on shoulder. Saw something in me that I had lost. She saw that I was more than a monster. She saw that I was a person, and she was willing to risk everything to prove it. He paused. That is what humans do. They see the best in others even when others cannot see it in themselves. And once they decide to care about you, they never stop. The journalist was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Thank you both. I think I have what I need. He left with his recorder floating behind him, and Eth stood in the repair bay, watching him go. That was nice, said, what you said about me. It was true. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, then smiled. Want to get a drink? I know a good cantina. Eth's mouth curved in something that might have been a smile. Same table, he asked. Same table. They walked out of the repair bay together, a human woman and a giant alien warrior, an unlikely pair, an impossible friendship. But they had proven that impossible things could happen. They had shown the galaxy that fear did not have to win. They had demonstrated that courage, real courage, was not about strength or weapons or power. It was about choosing to see the best in others. It was about refusing to give up on people. It was about standing together, no matter what. The galaxy would remember what they had done. The story would be told for generations, and maybe, just maybe, it would inspire others to do the same. To look past the fear, to see the person, to offer a drink to someone sitting alone. That was the human way, and now it was their way too. Together,